Hey guys, I am going to talk about a topic that I hope I can cover in enough detail to make it valuable. I had a conversation with a coaching client this morning, and in that conversation, some things were brought up that I felt like need to be addressed, not for just the client, but for all of us. You know, anybody going through loss of any kind or changes of any kind, you're going to experience a sense of loss through that and a desire to be accepted the way that you are. So what I want to talk about in this video is why seeking external acceptance is bullshit. And so in this video, I'm going to cover a couple of things. I want to talk about the power of confession. I want to talk about fear and control and shame and our survival mode. I want to talk about the swirl method and what that is. And I want to talk about pure acceptance and what that looks like, and how we can get out of things by serving and when self-centeredness is okay. There's quite a bit that I'm going to cover in here. For those of you that might be rewatching this that don't know who I am, I'm Nick Smith. I've been coaching for about 10 years. I'm an author. I have an industrial organizational psychology degree. And I have an avid, let's say, just desire to figure myself out and to help others do the same. And so as you're watching this video, if you have thoughts, please comment. Make sure that you like the video below and share it if it's valuable. But let's jump into this. You know, the biggest thing that we want at a fundamental level is to be accepted. If we were to strip everything away, at our core, we want to be accepted by others. And even more fundamentally than that is to be accepted by ourselves, to have ourselves see ourselves, wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm good with who I am. But in seeking acceptance from others, and this is why it's bullshit, is that there is no other person that will accept us the way that we can accept us. And so what I want to talk about is being true to yourself, of who you are. If you look at yourself internally, just think of your behaviors, your thoughts, your actions, how you show up every morning. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with who you are? Can you go out in the world and just really be authentic at your core? I want to talk about the word confession. To confess, people hear that word and I hate that word. It's kind of an ugly word. But to confess is really to give admission to your life. It's almost like, hey, if you like Barnum and Bailey's Circus, you're going to love my shit show. Just come in and see me for who I am. But we don't want people to see that. What happens is people want to see us the way they want to see us, and they'll accept us if we're willing to act in a way that's acceptable to them, rather than for us to show up as who we really are. Like, heaven forbid I be anxious, heaven forbid I be depressed, or heaven forbid that I laugh too loud, or I do these things that are a little weird to you. That's what we try and fit into. And then when we don't fit into that, we start to feel ashamed. And we start to hide things. And it's in that hiding things that we start to feel shame. And in that shame, we start to feel fear. And in that fear, we start to get controlling. And we lose trust. And we start acting out. And those are things that are harmful to any relationship. And so, you know, if I look at my relationship, I just went through a divorce this last year. We finalized in, I think, October of this last year. But for 3 years, I went through this phase of feeling incredibly anxious. And in that anxiety, I got controlling. Control is a fear tactic. It means we're afraid of losing something, so we try and control it. We lose our trust. We start acting out. We start checking in on people and making sure they're not doing what we are afraid they're going to do. But inside of that control, then they do start losing interest in us. They don't want to be around us. They start looking for other people, or they want out of the relationship, which is understandable. Nobody wants to be controlled. But if you're acting in a controlling way, or untrusting, or you're hiding things, look at the fears around that. What are you afraid of? And let's talk about what happens after. So after a divorce or a separation, there's a darkness that comes with that. Susan Anderson, if you don't know who she is, look her up. She talks about the swirl method. And so when you go through a loss of any type, the first thing that occurs is there's a shattering of your life the way you knew it. And in that shattering, we start to withdraw. We kind of go into ourselves, and we remove ourselves from people and life, and we kind of do our own thing. And then we internalize things as though, you know, this is my fault. I did all this. This came about because of my behaviors. We kind of take it all on. Full ownership, 100% ownership, even though that might not be the case. And then there's rage and anger. We get mad at the other person and mad at the situation because we can't control it, and it's beyond what we want. And then there's a lifting that comes after that. So you go through this shattering, this withdrawal, this internalization, this rage, and then this lifting. And so the cycle that I see is that because of fear, we have a fear of not being accepted. And so we start to act in ways that we hide, and in that hiding we feel shame, and in that shaming we feel afraid. And in that afraidness or that fear, we start to control. And in that control, we lose relationships. And in the loss of the relationships, there's a shattering, there's a withdrawal, an internalization, a rage, and a lifting that occurs when you finally let go and move on. Now, the way to let go and to move on is to serve others. I think that's been the most helpful for me, is to get on a call with somebody and just walk them through what they're challenged with. The other is to be self-centered in a degree. People say, I don't want to be self-centered. I don't want to be selfish. Well, if you're too selfish, if you're narcissistic, that's a problem because you don't care about other people. If you're too selfless, that's a problem because if you're too selfless, you're giving everything away at the cost of you. If you're too self-centered, you're taking at the cost of others, and that's not okay. There's a balance to it. But there's a sense of self-centeredness that you have to lift out of loss. I just need you to know inside of that, if you've experienced loss or you've experienced control or fear, all these things, it's not that you're broken. I would have a sense that your brain works just fine. It's just that you're going through normal human behaviors of survival. If there's a sense of loss and that you might lose something that you've had, you go into survival mode. And we do some crazy things when we go into survival mode, and it's not healthy, and it causes people to pull away, and it causes relationships to end. And so if that's occurred, what you've got to be willing to do is lay down the sword, so to speak, to forgive. And I love the idea of forgiveness is just don't cause any more harm to the other person. Lay down your weapons and just let it go. If you've lost somebody, to lift, you have to let it go. You got to set down that sword, not pick it up. You got to move on and create a new life. And the way to do that is to help others and then also to look after your own needs. It's nobody else's responsibility for you to do that. When we look at external acceptance, so if I go back to that, I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but external acceptance, if we want others to fulfill us, it's never going to work. We have to accept ourselves. And in accepting ourselves, we can accept others. And there's no hiding when both sides accept themselves. You can show up just like you are and have a relationship that's open and honest. There's no shame. There's no control and trust issues and tactics, manipulation, because we're not afraid. And so if we can get rid of that fear, then we don't have to worry about the loss. But if we do go through the loss, then we go through the swirl or the phoenix process, where there's a shattering, a withdrawal, an internalization, a rage, and a lifting. But that's the normal process. You can lift. Some people get stuck in it. You got to find a way to get out of that. You got to get help from others if you can. Go get professional help. Don't end your life. If you're thinking about suicide, don't do that. There's help for that. Loss is challenging, and what occurs, I just want to reiterate, going back to the beginning here, if we're always looking at somebody else to accept us, then yeah, they might accept us if we behave the way that they want. And when we don't behave the way they want, then we're no longer accepted and we no longer accept ourselves, so we get afraid and we feel ashamed and we hide things from them. And in that hiding, again, we go back to our fear tactics and we go to control and we go to trust issues. We go into survival mode, and in that survival mode, we destroy things. And in destroying things, we have to go through the swirl process. And when we can lift out of that by helping others, by looking after ourselves, then we can start to repair what was done. And the big thing is you've got to forgive people and lay down the sword and not cause additional harm. And so if both sides can do that, we can all move forward. I hope I didn't butcher this topic because it's really important. Stop looking for external validation. Look at internal validation. Look into yourself for that love that you need. Be okay with who you are. Be okay with letting others see who you are. And in that, you can heal. And so I can speak from experience on this, you know, going through a divorce this past year, 3 years of struggling prior to that, and just coming out of it finally, where I'm getting to a point where I'm accepting myself and letting others see me for who I am. I'm not perfect, I'm a human, but I'm not broken. My brain works just fine. I've got programming that gets to change, and so do you. And so I would invite you to work on that. Just remember, don't hide things. Don't be ashamed. Don't try and put on a show for other people. If you've experienced loss, go through the withdrawal, go through the internalization, go through the rage, but lay down the sword and lift yourself out of it. I hope that helps. Comment below if you have any additional thoughts from this. Make sure you like the video and share it with others. And I hope you guys have a great Sunday. Talk to you soon.